Welcome back, everybody, to the second lecture for today on phishing detection and machine learning. We have the honor to have with us Professor Bruhadeshwar Vesawanta. A few words about Professor Vesawanta. He's a professor and head of the Computer Science and Engineering Department at Mahindra University Ecole Centrale School of Engineering. He holds a PhD in computer science and engineering from Michigan State University, United States. He has over 15 years of experience in performing top quality network security research in world-class universities like Michigan State University, International Institute of Information Technology, Hyderabad, and Nanjing University. With no further ado, I will give the floor to you, Professor Visawanta. Thank you so much for being here today and addressing our students.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction, Tezudo. I'm happy to talk at this Elite Forum. So today's lecture, I'll be focusing on a very popular and difficult problem, that is phishing detection. And I will basically talk about the interplay between phishing detection and machine learning. So this talk is not exactly about how to use machine learning for phishing detection, although a significant part of it will focus on those aspects. But this is to kind of understand why it is difficult to apply machine learning to security related problems in the general sense. So what makes it difficult for people to use machine learning right away to security related data? And so this, I think the phishing detection problem actually has a lot of interesting dimensions and directions that actually show you these reasons. So I'll try to convince you by the end of this talk that one has to tread carefully when trying to use machine learning for any security related problem. So to begin with, we'll talk about the bit of phishing, what is phishing itself. Then I'll talk about a few detection approaches that people have used. I'll talk about what are the challenges, and then I will not have time to talk about how to defeat machine learning, but I will give you sufficient hints about how this is. If people in the audience are many of you must be familiar with what is known as adversarial machine learning, and that is something that kind of directly applies to this kind of problems. Okay, so let me just talk about what is phishing. So basically, phishing is this attack, a social engineering attack that actually lures users into visiting a website that is very familiar to some real website or a legitimate website, like Facebook, Amazon, or Google. Basically, the idea is to target the personal, personal information of the user, like his login ID, his password, and things like that. So when a user actually visits, visits a fake website, a phishing website, he would basically think that he's interacting with the real Amazon.com or the real Google.com website, and he would actually enter his login ID and password, and or maybe he might even enter his personal information like his age and gender and location and his salary details. So a lot of things could be revealed about the person if the person is not aware that he's actually visiting a phishing website. So this is a serious problem, as you can see, and many times you may have received emails which ask you to click on a particular link to update your update your personal details or things like that. Oftentimes a general layman, I would say, is not very careful in checking the veracity of the origin of this email. You might end up clicking the email, and you might actually be redirected to a phishing website that for all practical purposes looks absolutely like a real legitimate website, and the user does not suspect that he's actually visiting a phishing website. Okay, so this is a classical attack vector in phishing for phishing users. In fact, there is a working group that has been tracking the phishing attacks over the past few years. And in the last 5 years, they have actually recorded a 3 to 4 manifold increase that actually indicates 300 to 400% increase. Okay, so this is a major problem, right? So phishing, in fact, even in this scenario of COVID, the number of attacks in phishing, have gone up. So people have been redirected to websites, certain websites claiming to be COVID relief collection centers and things like that, and have been their personal information has been lost due to this. What are the major consequences? Just without considering a lot of other reasons, there are two major consequences. One is the financial loss. In fact, you'll be surprised to know that the amount of losses due to phishing run into almost billions of dollars, and more than billions of dollars per year. And and if you add that to the loss of privacy of users, personal information of users is sold for profit online. So these are the two major consequences of phishing. Okay. So there are two forms of phishing. In fact, there is only one has to, in the end, still visit a phishing website. But the initial step is to make the user to click on a URL that actually redirects him to a phishing website. So this is, let's call it for the moment, let's call it as URL phishing. Okay. Or in fact, sometimes the nomenclature in this domain is quite wide and varied. So sometimes such things are also called as spear phishing or things like that. You may also hear words like extreme phishing that will come back a bit later. So for instance, if you receive an email and you click through it, so they are basically targeted for users to click through and visit a phishing website. So the question one might ask is, why do users even follow such URLs, right? So the reason being that most users are not that savvy or not careful enough to most users don't check the URL itself. And the URLs, usually they can be pretty complex strings, right? So they can contain a lot of details. And as you know, normal users are not really educated in reading URLs in the proper way. So these URLs typically look like real URLs. They combine popular words like Amazon, Google, eBay, PayPal, Paytm, and a lot of these interesting words. So one tends to believe that this must be a real URL. So a lot of we'll talk about this, how these URLs are, or what kind of things can be found in such URLs. And typically these URLs are obfuscated with numbers, characters, so it renders it very difficult to read. For a user, if it's a English word or if it's a word from a natural language, reading it is not very difficult. But we start mixing it with numbers, characters, and fuzzing it with spellings, like instead of spelling google.com, you spell G and put a 0 after G and you put a O. So it's like, it looks like Google, but it's not really Google, it is something else. And and also these URLs are long. So these are some of the reasons, social reasons, why users will kind of click through such URLs and end up landing on a phishing website. Okay. And this is the classical phishing attack, and this is a picture taken from my paper. So if you look at the left hand side, this is a real Facebook web page. This is the proper, which has all the details. I'll explain to you in a moment. So in this case, for instance, you can see that the legitimate website actually follows a certain structure. Okay, for instance, one of the things that the legitimate website usually has is that the domain name here will kind of whatever domain is present in this address bar, you may actually find it in the title as well. Okay, so there'll be so Facebook, for instance, the word Facebook will appear in the title. So this is something that this is a regular practice for most organizations to do this. They put their domain, their branded domain name in the title. And you can also see that many such organizations or social media websites, they also ensure that there is a copyright match to their domain name. So if you have facebook.com here, then we can actually see that there is a copyright logo that contains the word Facebook. Okay. And there are, and you might also see the word Facebook appear several times inside this page here. So these are all standard practices of a person who makes a real website, of a legitimate website, right? So the thing is, uh, a user might visit this website. He may not observe all these features. Okay. So if the user has correctly typed the domain name, he would actually end up landing on this page, and there is no problem. Okay. However, if a user has clicked on a URL and he ends up landing on this particular page on the right hand side, okay, of your screen, you can see that this is not Facebook's website. Okay, simply because in the domain name you can just do a simple cursory, uh, you know, uh, examination of the address bar. You can see that it contains the word Facebook, but the word Facebook is not actually part of the domain name. It is actually it's a slash page. It is actually part of the URL. So, but this domain name is something else. Now, if you see here, there's a lot of mismatch in the domain name and the rest of the page. This word here that appears in the domain name doesn't appear anywhere inside the page. In fact, there is no title that contains this word. There is no copyright logo with this word. So this is, and in fact, the word doesn't appear in the page at all. That means this, because the phishing attacker doesn't want to reveal his domain name as part of this visible HTML space. So this is something, if the user is not very careful, he would end up entering his email ID that he uses to log into, let us say, to Facebook, and the password of Facebook. Okay. And many times the users, what happens is that the phishing attacker usually ensure that you are finally redirected to the final your facebook.com website. Okay, so they will collect your data, but they will also ensure that you are logged on to facebook.com with your proper credentials. But by the time your email, your password, your login are all already stolen. You can also see that there is a sign up form here. Suppose you are new to Facebook and you are trying to say sign up, have a get an account on Facebook. So this form here, for instance, you will actually end up giving your name, your email, and you may give your date of birth, you may give your gender, right? So the attacker at the very least will at least get your personal details through this form. So phishing is a pretty serious problem, as you can see here, that if one is not careful, there can be a lot of issues. So how do we, what are the defenses that we can think of? What are the, standard, let's put a bird's eye view, because there is the area of phishing detection is as old as, is pretty old. I mean, there are papers that we can look back way back in 2002 and 1 as well. And there are papers that have published this year as well. There are products that come out this year. So it's a very, very vast area of exploration. So there are two possible defenses you can think of. One is you could prevent a user from visiting a phishing website. Okay. So for instance, you can give a warning that this URL is a phishing URL. Okay. Or you can basically, so as soon as I get an email, I could actually, the Google's Gmail server, for instance, has this kind of warning system. It actually puts that email in the spam folder and says that this URL is suspicious, right? So this is one way of preventing the user from ever visiting the phishing website. The other way is to use DNS blacklisting. Say, let us say you receive any domain name, right? And you are asked to click on that. One of the things you end up doing is that you must make a DNS query to get the IP address of that particular domain name. Now, if that particular domain name is actually blacklisted, then the DNS server will actually give you back the appropriate request. And the web server knows how to interpret that request, and it will take you to safety. It says that this particular domain name has been blacklisted, so you should not visit this website. Now, this is a bit difficult. I mean, although this you will find an equal amount of research in this direction. The other popular way is that let us have a method or an algorithm that actually takes the current website's data, and somehow it actually certifies that the website is not a phishing website. Okay, and this is a very popular approach when a lot of people are tend to use this kind of approach, especially in research. This is a very popular approach. So basically, the idea here is that we will still visit the website, but before the user interacts with the website, there may be some sort of a plugin inside this web browser that extracts all the features of this particular website and runs these features through a machine learning classifier that has been already pre-trained. And the machine learning classifier will actually say whether it's safe to visit this website or not. Okay. And so in that case, this set of approaches become a classification problem wherein you just have to classify whether this particular website is a phishing website or not. So we can pose the problem of phishing detection as follows. We can say that can we determine if a website is a phishing website based on information available from the website? Of course, this is an English statement. It's not a technical statement, and you can interpret it in many ways. Okay, but when I discuss solutions, it will be clear. So, to put very coarsely, this is a classification problem. We model it as a classification problem, and we say that can you distinguish between a phishing website and a legitimate website? Okay, and once it becomes a classification problem, you have a choice of any number of classifiers, right? So this is actually you can use any statistical classifier, you can use any artificial neural network, you can use any kind of deep neural network. There is a sufficient enough choice for you to choose the kind of classifier. Okay, that will kind of depend on how many features you have that you wish to classify on. So now comes the real problem. Okay, so if you pose this as a classification problem, then what is the issue? The issue is the features. Like, what are the features that can distinguish between a phishing and a legitimate website? Okay, let's explore that a little bit and see what people have done in the past. I have already talked about blacklisting of URLs, domains, and all this. So one very good reason, besides many people will actually, especially people from industry, will actually might actually prefer this approach because it's more effective, more efficient, right? One of the reasons is that why it is not. I mean, technically speaking, it's not very effective is because these days attackers are changing domains very frequently. So any phishing website is actually brought down in a matter of maybe 48 to 72 hours before it actually gets blacklisted. And this is a problem that actually, just blacklisting URLs doesn't really help here. Okay, so that's why there is a rise in the machine learning based approaches, which actually try to perform some sort of a classification. Given, let us say you have data from the legitimate websites and you have data from the phishing websites, you will be able to perform this classification. So let us talk about different kinds of classification you can do. So let's for the moment assume that you have a sufficient amount of data from phishing websites and sufficient amount of data from legitimate websites. I will talk about how this data can be obtained and what are the challenges in actually using such kind of data. Okay, but until that moment, let's assume that we have two data sets. One data set is phishing data set, one data set is machine learning data set. So many approaches actually try to deal with URL classification. So the problem in URL classification is you are given a set of phishing URLs, you are given a set of legitimate URLs. You have to design a classifier or a feature that actually classifies between them. Any attacker will host this phishing website. Okay. So an attacker is willing to compromise your who is interested in your data will be hosting this. The actual Actually, I don't understand the question. Legitimate and compromised user ID. They the phishing attack is to actually get your user ID and password. So there is no question of legitimate or compromise. I mean, once your user ID and password are compromised, there is very little that the server can actually do to figure out whether it's you logging into the website or it's somebody else logging into the website. Of course, there are other approaches like password hash and things like that which prevent such things, but they're not very popular. Okay, so let's come back to this. I was just answering a couple of questions I got. Okay, so let's talk about how. So the machine learning approaches, they actually look at, let's say URLs. So you have URLs from legitimate and you have URLs from phishing. Then you have to classify based on the set of features. Then you have HTML based classification, wherein we take the HTML content of the phishing website and then you take the HTML content on the legitimate site and you build a classifier based on the content of these two pages. And there are many approaches that actually use third-party servers and other things. So we'll come to all of these in a moment. Okay. So let's talk about URL classification. So what I will do is I will discuss a few of these things. Maybe somewhere in the middle I can handle a few of these questions, right? So you can actually I'll just speak out the question and I'll answer that question right then and there. So let's talk about URL classification. Okay, so the problem is simple. That is, you are given two sets of URLs, and what are the features that could be used to differentiate between them? Okay, a lot of study has been done on URLs of the phishing websites, and there are many features people have tried to look at. Let's talk about a sample feature. Let's call it character frequency. Okay, so let's say you are given a set of phishing URLs, and you're given a set of legitimate URLs. So this feature basically says that the distribution of characters of the English alphabet, for instance, are different inside a phishing URL and they are different inside a legitimate URL. And basically, the machine learning classifier should be able to learn this particular difference, and then it can actually differentiate. It can actually understand what makes a URL a phishing URL and what makes a URL a legitimate URL. So in this case, let us say you take the character frequency. What we do is we just first calculate. We count all the characters in the phishing URL. Let us say. And we calculate the normalized distribution of characters, right? So whenever we do such measurement, we try to do it on the normalized distributions rather than absolute distribution. And once you have this normalized distribution of alphabets in a given URL, so what we do is we take some sample data set, let's say 10% or 20% of this, and we try to estimate these distributions. In fact, when you do the training, when you try to do the training, this data is fed to the classifier, right? So you have to extract this data and feed it to the classifier. So once you calculate the characters in the URLs, we actually compare them with the standard character distribution of the English language. So that gives you the distance from the standard English language distribution. So the idea is that if you are given a phishing URL, the character distribution will be different when you compare the legitimate URL. So you are comparing both of them against the character distribution of the English language character. Okay. So there are many methods. This method is called Kolmogorov frequency method. There are other methods you can measure this divergence. So one is Kullback-Leibler divergence. You could use Euclidean distance. You could use edit distance. So all of these are measuring how far this character distribution is from the English language. And the idea is that we always take these distances, once for the phishing websites, phishing URLs, and once for the legitimate URLs. And then we have now sufficient data to train the classifier. Okay. So there are many more features. Again, as I said, all these features are defined on the two data sets that we discussed. That is the legitimate and the phishing URL. So one interesting feature is the length of the URL. So typically, the URLs, phishing URLs are pretty long. That means they are, they are not short. So this is a feature that even now you will find very relevant. But there are issues with using just length of the URL as a feature to uh, uh, classify between the legitimate and phishing site. Many times phishing websites have special characters like and hyphen. If these characters are present, then this is kind of something that you may suspect. Okay. Uh, the number of punctuation symbols, legitimate URLs do not tend to have that many punctuation symbols like period or the exclamation or this semicolon or this colon and things like that. So this is something that is not a feature of legitimate URLs. Uh, so, for instance, many times you have a URL, and then we also find that the URL contains somewhere in the between, in between, it will contain something like Amazon.com. And in fact, that's actually something that you will see in phishing URL. This is like data taken from the live. So this is something that you might actually find in phishing URLs. Whereas if it's a regular URL, I mean, it's a legitimate URL, then you may not find this top level domain name like .com or .edu, etc. in the URL. You will find it only at the beginning of after the root domain, you will find this www, and then or after the root domain, you'll just find this Amazon.com coming up, right? And you won't find anything else, any other occurrence of the top TLD anywhere inside the URL. There are some suspicious words which have been identified over a period of time, like login, confirm, sign in, and update, which host frequency is higher inside the phishing URLs. There are some target words. This is a special thing which contain, some words of websites, e-commerce websites like eBay and things like that. So the URL doesn't contain the TLD, but it will just contain the word eBay, for instance, or it may contain the word PayPal. So these are all, ways of creating phishing URL. And one very good telltale sign is that many phishing domains uh, are just hosted as IP addresses. I mean, they just contain the domain as only an IP address, and this is something that happens a lot. So with these kind of features, people have researched how to classify about the basic. One of the results that I can declare here is that about 25,000 URLs from Alexa and fishtank.com have been analyzed, and there's a high accuracy. The classifier can actually distinguish between the phishing and the legitimate URL with a 99% accuracy. Okay, so this is URL based classification. This is kind of something. It kind of gives you an idea about how we can derive and extract features from the URLs and then use them to design machine learning tasks. Okay. Before I go to content based, let me try to answer a couple of questions. Uh, so how do I detect a website is legitimate or not using ML? Will it compare the actual? Will it compare with the actual website URL? No, it will not. So typically, the user himself is not aware of which phishing website is being mimicked, right? So whether so that is a difficult problem. So the machine learning classifier actually looks at actual reported phishing websites and actual reported legitimate websites, right? And then builds a classifier on that. And the hope is that it will try to, when it is deployed in the real world, it's deployed live, it will be able to classify between these two websites. Yeah. So won't the people who create phishing websites know about the parameters used to classify the URL? Absolutely, that is correct. And won't they mean they try to adapt? I agree to that. And that's why we need more clever solutions that actually try to try to defend against such things. Okay. So does servers or mechanisms are able to block IPs or ranges? Uh, you can have blacklisting and those kind of things, but there is no there's no point in blocking IPs or ranges of IPs unless you are suffering some kind of a DDoS attack. So phishing attacks are more of a targeted thing. So you don't one cannot block an IP address because you had a phishing attack sometime 4 days back from that particular IP address. Actually, so does it mean legitimate websites are listed somewhere? Legitimate websites are all around us. All the Google.coms, all the university websites, they're all around there for you to just see. So they're not just listed. You can just collect them from anywhere you wish. Right. So the data sets collection I'll talk about in a moment. So the collection is does phishing website use HTTPS protocol? Maybe not. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. What if one clicks on any such URL center but it closes instantly? Then you don't have to worry much about it because it closed before you actually entered any of your personal data. Okay, so let me proceed. I think I'll come back to the questions after some more time. I hope this is working out. So let's talk about how we can use the content. So I think the question is many people might be having is how does this machine? That's actually a pretty solid question. Something that researchers don't have a good answer. So here when you're trying to detect a phishing website, are you comparing it with a real website? Let's say this website is mimicking google.com. Does it mean that you take this content of this website and compare with google.com? No, it is not possible that way because the web browser cannot figure out. I mean, the machine learning tool doesn't have that much of intelligence to figure out that this is a phishing website and it is trying to mimic google.com. Rather, what we do is we try to identify some interesting features like general features that are common to phishing websites, and we try to train a classifier that actually tries to learn those features very well, so that when you actually visit a real phishing website, it might actually we may hope that the machine learning classifier can actually throw out a flag. Okay? So that's a pretty tough problem. You're right, it's not so simple as it looks like. Okay? So phishing, some of the content-based features, there can be a combination of the following. Like HTML. By the way, much of the content is derived from different papers across the literature. So I have listed those papers in my paper. You can take a look at that. I have given the reference to my paper, so you may read it after the presentation if you are interested in it. So we can, in content-based features, what we do is we actually take the target web page, that is the web page that you're just trying to visit, and using the target web page, we'll extract some features, and then based on the HTML inside that page, for instance, we can use the DOM-based features, or we can extract the HTML features, and we can also look at some special URL features. We can look at there are some approaches that actually use third-party servers. I'll talk about it in a moment. So all of these are content-based approaches. Okay, this search engine-based approach, for instance, very interesting, completely content-based. Okay, so here again the idea is you're given the machine learning classifier. You can think of it as being developed inside a research lab, and you're given 10,000 phishing websites. You're given, let us say, 10,000 phishing URLs, and you're given 10,000 legitimate websites and 10,000 legitimate URLs, and you're asked to build a classifier, right? And we are looking for interesting features that can actually distinguish between the phishing and the legitimate side. Okay. So what are some of the DOM features? So DOM is document object model. So it's basically a way to interact and modify the way a web page can look like. It's like a tree structured structure that the browser builds to represent the web page. So some DOM features are basically many phishing websites. Their key idea, what is the key idea of a phishing website? It wants to get your username, it wants to get your credit card number, it wants to get your password. So that means the phishing website must definitely have a login form. Okay, it needs a form. It needs, so that means when you look inside the DOM, You should be able to find POM tags. You should be able to find input words like login ID, user ID, and things like that. You should be able to find keywords like password, PIN, passport, customer number, things like that. So many phishing websites have these common features. Okay, you can think of it like an attack vector. And some of the content-based features also look at a few things. For instance, in addition to the URL features that I just discussed, there can be words like these particular words which have been identified in literature, like secure, account, web SDR, login, eBay, API, sign-in, banking. These are all popular sensitive words, which are, if they are found in the URL, you can be suspicious that this is a phishing URL. You may also find embedded domains. This is what I just talked about. That is a top-level domain, in the URL. This is a very interesting thing. There are sometimes this top-level domain is actually out of position. For instance, many times after the .com, you see this is a sample URL here. After the .com here, you should not find anything usually, right? So this should be the last thing on your. You should find a slash and the rest of the URL. But here the .com is out of place because the domain here is continuing, it keeps on extending. Subdomains, it becomes eBay Motors and then .com and keeps on going. So this is out of position top level domain name. So .com should be the top level and these all should be the subdomain. So this is again indicates that this might be a phishing URL. Okay. And what are some of the HTML features we can look at? How does the HTML content help you? So HTMLs will have typical things like forms, input tags, keywords. In addition, there are action fields in the HTML form. So typically HTML form, when you click, there's an action that has to be taken based on the clicking that you do. Right? When you do the submit, some action has to be taken. Many times if the action field is empty, or if it points to a file, or if it points to a different domain, or if it points to a non-HTTPS URL, that means your information is being transmitted, insecurely over the internet. So all these things are actually, something that we call as bad action fields. Okay? And this can be observed if you look at the HTML of this web page. And we can look at non-matching URLs. Many times phishing websites, you see, the whatever is displayed in the address bar, that domain actually there'll be some domain name, but inside this phishing website, the URLs could be pointing to different domains, right? So this is something which we call as a non-matching URL. This is again a feature. So if you are having question about how these features are actually encoded, these features are in fact binary features. So for instance, we say this is one particular feature. If we find any of these things, then we set this feature value to 1. Okay. If we find non-matching URLs, for instance, in this particular context, if there are a lot of non-matching URLs, then this particular feature is set to 1. Okay. So this encoding is, can vary from paper to paper, and how people have tried to do their classification. We have this out of position brand names which I just talked about. Here is some interesting features just called third-party server features. So, for instance, one of the things that one of the features that phishing websites have is that their age is not very long. The domains on which the phishing servers are hosted, they are not very, their age is too small. So like 1 day, 2 day, and things like that. So whenever you are visiting a website, there can be a plugin inside your browser that can actually check whether this particular, what is the age of this particular domain using a whois query. Okay, so this is something that can be done. Many times we can also do a small, there can be also a cross check on the page rank of this particular domain name. So I'll come to the page rank in a moment. Low page rank basically means that this particular domain is has just come up because if you recall, Google used the page rank algorithm to rank websites. Okay, so if a website is highly ranked, then it should actually appear in the top result. If it's not highly ranked, then it'll appear somewhere in the 100th result or 1000th result. So those are interesting. I'll talk about this page rank, why it is useful. So let me just pause here. No, accuracy is not a good metric for URL classification. kind of depends on the denominator. So I believe the true positive rate is a better method. Do we have any website to check whether URL is phishing website or not? Okay, this I will come to it in a moment. Yes, this is a difficult thing, but there are websites that there are public forums where URLs are posted, phishing URLs are posted, and I'm going to show you books and I'm going to show you materials and ways to collect this as well. So one of the things that phishing websites have is that, or they don't have, is that they are not very popular in Google search. So one approach people have thought of is that we'll take the top 5 important keywords from the HTML, right? So you just take the HTML and then extract all the content, the body part of it, and then extract the top 5 important words in the web page. Actually, this is a pretty complex process because to extract the top 5 important words with respect to a given web page, you need to actually have a corpus of other documents, right, where these words are also appearing. So this is a pretty complex way to do things. But for instance, those who are familiar with the term frequency inverse document frequency method, they know that for this particular method to work, you need additional documents as well. Okay, so the idea is interesting, but to implement it is very difficult. Okay, so what the idea says is that, okay, let's say you have you are able to extract the top 5 important words. Let us say it is from a corpus of legitimate websites. What we try to do is we try to search for these words using Google. Okay, and if the website shows up, the website that I'm trying to visit, if it shows up in the top 5 results or top 10 results, then it cannot be phishing because Google has been able to rank this website as a highly ranked website. Right? So the idea is very neat. It kind of captures a important feature that phishing websites lack compared to legitimate websites, but it is very difficult to implement. You can also take the word appearing in the copyright, in the copyright logo and search for it. And if the same web page turns up in the top results, you know that this particular thing is a top ranked website. So that's another way of figuring out whether it's a top website or not. So as you can see, these are all the interesting features that you can use to detect phishing websites. So the key idea in these approaches is that you extract all these features. So you are given a corpus of legitimate and phishing data sets, and you extract all these features, and then you train the classifier, and the classifier should automatically, and then you deploy the classifier, right? So when the classifier is deployed, whenever the web browser is trying to visit a website, it has to extract all these features and then run these features to the classifier, and then the classifier should say, based on the on its model, it should be able to say whether the website is phishing or not. And you can see what is the difficulty in that. I mean, the user could be visiting websites that were not part of the training set, right? I mean, there are so many websites out there, and especially phishing websites. There are new websites born every day or every minute. So any classifier will definitely will not be able to capture every possible aspect of every phishing website ever is and ever will be, right? So that is a difficult thing to capture. But so therein lies the biggest challenge in phishing detection. That is, you are training on a laboratory data set, but you are deploying this tool on the real world. So how does it, how does that work, right? How does this, how efficient are these things, right? So this is something that one needs to take into consideration. So this is where I'm coming to the challenges of phishing detection. Okay, efficiency is so for the moment we'll assume that machine learning is the method by which we are doing this. So when we talk about all these aspects, we are talking about sometimes we are talking about the efficiency of using machine learning itself. Okay. So for instance, the content-based approaches, as you have seen, extract a lot of interesting features. But as you can realize, if you have been looking at those features, you know that extracting these features the way they have been described can be a very, very time-consuming task. right? I mean, the user is trying to visit a website, and then there is a extension in his browser that is doing all this analysis. You realize that it is not a very efficient thing for the user. It affects the user's browsing experience. Okay. It's just crowdsourcing. People just detect phishing websites to crowdsourcing. Uh, Many times this phishing, it's not these features, these approaches don't accurately model the phishing phenomena. Like looking at this data purely statistically, like a data science way, is not good. uh, the third limitation is that using third party servers, like to check, for instance, you're checking the domain name, the age of a domain name through the whois lookup. That kind of violates the privacy of the user, right? Because the user's browsing history is being recorded by this particular tool, and it's doing all these queries. Okay. And also the additional bandwidth, because you have to make this query. Okay. So, but here's a very interesting thing that most approaches have actually kind of overlooked, or some people have tried to address this, but they had issues. So in the data set that we have, there could be a bias towards a certain set of features. So many times we take a data set when you're trying to build a model, machine learning model. You try to study some interesting features, and then you try to build a classifier based on that. But what if the data that you are given is inherently biased with respect to a particular feature? So one feature I'll tell you is the URL feature. So why is this a biased feature? Because phishing websites are reported by websites like openfish.com, fishtank.com, anti-phishing working group, and things like that. So those people report phishing URLs. That means they report the entire URL. Okay. Now somebody asked a question: where can I get legitimate URLs or legitimate domains? Actually, there is a website called alexa.com, which is actually used to collect the legitimate domains. But alexa.com doesn't report legitimate URLs. It only reports the top domain names. Okay. That means if there is the URL, if there is a web page that is hidden deep inside that particular domain, that URL may not appear in the dataset. So if you are trying to do research on phishing datasets, make sure that your dataset contains phishing URLs and legitimate URLs, not just legitimate domain names. Okay, because just having legitimate domain names does not help you in your research. Okay, and what will happen is, because the domain names are too small, it looks like the legitimate URLs are very short in length, whereas phishing URLs are longer in length. Where in fact it is far from the truth. It is not really that case. In fact, many times these days, legitimate URLs are as long as the phishing URL. Okay. So this is the other part of adversarial sampling, is basically if attackers can poison the learning process, or they can actually bypass the classifier. This, I think, I don't have time to go through it, but let me just talk about. So you're actually talking about a problem wherein you are trying to differentiate between phishing and legitimate websites, thinking that all phishing websites share common features, but in fact, nothing could be far from the truth. They all share common behavior. I mean, you can say that much, but they don't really have common features that can be used by classifiers. This is the approach to, this is a popular approach of phishing detection. You have this feature mining, machine learning, and evaluation validation. So I've given the URL here for you to go through it. I think the slides will be shared. So let me talk about very interesting thing: how to get phishing data. That might be a question you might be having. These are some popular sites. Okay, Alexa.com doesn't give phishing data; it gives you the correct data, legitimate domains. But it does not give you legitimate URLs, only the domain name, the top level domain name. So Fishtank, OpenFish, very popular. They are updated on a daily basis. People submit URLs all the time, phishing URLs, and they report. In fact, you can also look at your own Gmail and Outlook spam folders. Many email servers actually take. If you see there's a link that tells you report an email as spam, right? So they actually use these emails, these reports from users, to mark emails as clear phishing versus spam. Okay, so in fact, Gmail has clearly separated out the actual spam mails that are trying to sell you something versus phishing emails that are actually trying to make you click to some website. So you can make your own data, right? There are phishing simulators like GoFish and InfoSec IQ that can actually get you this. VirusTotal only gives you data about viruses, not about phishing websites. Okay? So you can use phishing simulators. A VirusTotal is not even a phishing. It's actually a website where you can check whether a file is malicious or not. So, okay. Simulators are actually ways of testing how prepared your organization is with respect to phishing attack. Okay, so it creates a simulated attack scenario, and we haven't worked with these things, but I believe that they are reasonably good for testing preparedness of phishing. Okay, so I think I am pretty much running out of time. Let me just talk about some interesting aspects of what we have. We have worked on this. This is our work that has appeared in this in SACMA 2018. It's called. In fact, you can see that no Thai domain name. In fact, you look at the title. It has instead of O, you have a 0 there, and you have domain instead of I, you have 1 there. So our approach actually tries to avoid a lot of overheads of previous approaches, like not using third-party servers and not using search engines and things like that, and tries to kind of characterize phishing websites as they are. Okay, so the idea is that domain name is actually a very key indicator, right? So this was observed by people in the past, but they haven't explored it fully. Okay, so what we did is that we basically designed features that are dataset agnostic, because we don't care about the URL length as such, and we just designed a set of features that actually help you to distinguish between the phishing and the legitimate side. So before I'll just get into directly into the feature design, I'll talk about the few features here. So one feature is the domain length itself. So this is actually new, and this is surprising that people did not realize it until very late. So the domains that people have taken in the past, they're usually small, like facebook.com, 6 characters, 7 characters, or amazon.com. You can see they're all very, very small. Google also is like only 6 characters, right? So most of the legitimate URLs are pretty small in length, like hp.com, for instance. Whereas phishing domains, because there is not much available to them in terms of registering domains, the attacker has to actually register a longer domain, right? And this is actually a pretty good feature. We found from the data set that we have, is a nice feature. URLs was I already talked about. How do we know the feature is good or bad? We can use this cumulative distribution plots, which show the distribution of the values of this particular feature, as over a particular cell. So what we did is that to know if a feature is good or bad, we take our sample data set, and from the sample data set, we take out a few phishing websites and a few legitimate websites. Let's say you have 10,000 phishing websites and 10,000 legitimate. We take 1,000 each from each of these things, and then we extract this feature, the length of the URL, and we plot this feature against this thing. So you can see this actually, the way to read this is that the number of this is the actual length of, this is the value, and this is the number of samples which actually fall below this value, right? So let us say 50 is one value. So you can see that many of this one actually represents the legitimate URL length. So you can see that many legitimate URLs actually fall below 10 characters. Whereas phishing URLs, as you can see, many of them, more than 50% or 60%, in fact, have lengths above 50 characters. Okay, so this is a way to read this. It's called a empirical cumulative distributed function. Then we looked at how many times link ratios are interesting, like many the links should point to the same domain name. A very interesting feature is the frequency of the domain name. Okay, often if you see I showed you one of the things where the domain name appears in the address bar, but the domain name does not repeat anywhere inside the web page because the attacker wants to hide his domain name. So that means this is a very interesting feature because For phishing websites, you can expect that the domain name will not repeat many places. But for a Leshnote website, you can expect that the domain name will repeat inside the visible text of the web page. And this is something that was interesting as we found out. This is what the picture on the right hand side shows you. And we also used a few features like whether HTTPS. Somebody asked whether HTTPS is. This is a very interesting feature because 2 years or 3 years ago, when we used the data sets, almost no website, no phishing website was using HTTPS. But now it has increased. About 40% phishing websites are using HTTPS. The presence of non-alphabetical characters was also new. This was something that nobody has tried before. Domain name with copyright logo. This is again whether most legitimate websites have that. And page title and domain name. These are all new features. Here you can see the sample analysis on 1,000 websites. We can see that legitimate websites, about 92% of them have used HTTPS. At the time, phishing websites, about 23 of them. About 5% legitimate URLs had, had five, non-alphabetical characters. Whereas, like especially IBM data centers and things like that have numbers in their URLs. Okay, although they are legitimate, they still have numbers and things like that. So that's where this 5% comes in. Whereas phishing websites, many of the URLs have non-alphabetical characters. And here the copyright log, you can see about 26%, which we had some commercial websites. So all of them had copyright logos, whereas none of the phishing URLs had any copyrights or logo matches. Okay? That means they had a copyright logo, but it wasn't matching the domain name, right? That word was not appearing in the domain name. So they might have use the copyright of Facebook, but the domain name is not Facebook, so it wouldn't match. And page title matching, surprisingly 3% of phishing websites did use their domain name in the page title, whereas 87% of legitimate websites used it. So this is an interesting, this was an interesting study. We also tried some live testing on, so we trained on, we had two data sets. The first data set is basically rows 1 and 2 here from Alexa and PhishTank, whereas the other one was live testing, and we got pretty good results with and without URL feature. And so I just want to come to the accuracy part of it. So we basically just tested the accuracy, but we basically focused on the TPR. Okay, so the true positive rate. So here this shows the maximum, the mean true positive rate. As you can see, it's in the high 98s for certain classifiers, right? So except for Gaussian naive-Bayes was not doing so good because of its nature of building up over a period of time. But on an average, our tool was able to get up to 98.8% true positive rate, which of course in accuracy we got 99% also, but we didn't really consider that as a accuracy is not really a great feature. So these are the features. All these references you may find in the in my paper. And we tried for live detection. That the true positive rate was surprisingly quite high. Gradient boosting actually was giving 99.75% with and without URL. We tried both. Okay. And these are the time taken. So because the features are all taken based on the current, only the website itself, the feature extraction was surprisingly very, very fast. So we had only 7 features and we were able to get things very fast. So if you want to detect if it's a legitimate website, it took about 0.1 second. Whereas for phishing website, it took about 0.02 seconds. So I think I will, I think I will stop here. I'm almost out of time, and I'll be happy to take any more questions at this point.
Thank you so much, Professor, for your interesting presentation. I saw that you were answering questions during your lecture as well. So actually, all of the current questions have been answered, unless we have, some people that want to ask something more for the time being. In the meantime, maybe you can make your oh, we have one question. Which is the best anti-phishing product in the market?
I don't know. Everybody says that is the best, but we don't know what method they use, right? So we used, we tried it on all the classifiers, statistical classifiers, k-means, KNN, gradient boosting, Bayes classifier, naive Bayes classifier.
Yeah, that's the next question. Which classifier you used?
So we tried everything out there.
Okay, yeah, if you want to make your closing remarks, otherwise we can end this session now.
Okay, not much. So if people want to work on this domain, there is lots of data available out there. The thing is, you need to keep in mind that the domain is not the domain, the problem domain is very important. Okay, so that means you cannot just use a classifier just like a statistical classifier. You must actually design your features with care, and then only you'll be able to work on it. No books. I mean, this is real research, right? So if phishing web attackers can track your legitimate logins, they don't track your legitimate logins. They just collect your let's say they assume that you might be having website, you may be having account on Facebook. They don't know which accounts you hold, right? But they just try to get get the details. Can phishing be completely removed? Not really. How to get the data sets? Just go to those website, openfish.com, and or all the data sets are available. Many of the, in fact, I'm also willing to share the data sets that we have, but it's all very easy to collect. You just need to have those HTML pages with you to collect those data sets.